Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Compliance Compass. Today, we kick off a new series. I'm going to call it the Culture Series. And what are we talking about? Well, we're actually talking about you. We're talking about you and where is your seat? What is your role in the organization? So that's what we're going to dive in today. This is a brief edition, but I think there's some real meaty things that we can take away in this discussion. So the first thing is, in your role as a compliance officer, what is really the recommended place that you fall within that hierarchy of your organization? What is the reporting structure? Well, I know that from these federal sentencing guidelines, it's talked about a high-level individual. We talk about someone who has programmatic oversight of the compliance program. But we can get a lot of information too from corporate integrity agreements. Do you actually read the CIAs? Do you dive through them? Are you kind of a legal nerd like I am sometimes, where you want to know the nuances of a particular case? What is it that we can glean from those particular documents? Well, I think one thing we can see is that when an organization comes under that kind of scrutiny and the government imposes a CIA, one of the things they say is that your high-level compliance person cannot report through legal counsel. They can't report through finance. Well, why is that? Why would they say that? And I think it's because even though if you were to take a Venn diagram and you'd say there's a lot of overlap in internal audit and legal and risk management and compliance, there are some distinct differences. In particular, really legal's role is to represent the organization and really to protect the organization. Whereas compliance's role is to help detect, prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. So those sound the same, but they're not the same. And so that's really important. The government doesn't want compliance, if it's reporting up through legal, to have some of that information vetted. And I'm not saying that would happen in every organization, but I'm saying the government is talking about it for a reason in these CIAs. In your organization, in your seat, who's responsible for compliance? Now, if you said, I am, I would challenge you. And here's how I would challenge you. We used to say in our organization, the only person who's not responsible for compliance is the compliance officer. That individual is responsible for the compliance program, the infrastructure, making sure that people have a voice, making sure that there are mechanisms and frameworks in order to help detect and prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. But the people who are actually responsible for compliance are the people that deliver care each and every day, just as quality and financial stewardship is embedded in their work, embedded in who they are, so should compliance. Okay, so now to the ultimate question that I want to get to. Where's your seat? What do I mean by that? Well, I had a consultant one time that I worked with who came in to assess our compliance program and of another organization. And one of the things he asked was, Chris, where's your seat? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, literally, at the table, at the senior leadership table, where is your seat? So I drew a picture and I showed him kind of this round table. And he said, no, I understand what the room looks like. Where do you sit? Do you sit around that table? Do you sit off over to the side? Do you speak only when you're asked to speak? Or are you part of the daily conversation of operations? I said, no, I sit right there at the table. And he said, Chris, a lot of times this gets missed, but that is a really, really important part of the culture of a compliant organization. Is that the compliance officer is not an afterthought. The program is not an afterthought. They're sitting right there in that senior leadership meeting, in that conversation, having vibrant discussions regarding the strategy and the finances and the operations of the organization, that voice is embedded in that conversation, just like we were talking about. So again, I ask you, knowing now how important that is, where's your seat?